All right, welcome to an episode of Panakal podcast for Geeks, the show about good friends hanging out, talking about the things we love. Put that to memory this time, Andrew, so I won't forget it. You all know my
You
co-host
need to
Andrew
make
Sides.
it too hard.
I usually write it down. I keep forgetting. And our guest today is Linley Barba, right? Whose last name,
Barba.
by the way, I just learned at the top of the week because you just go by Linley B everywhere, like you're some kind of rap star. And I'm just like,
Yeah, I don't think I have those kind of skills, but yeah, I've always just really liked my first name, and it's been very easy to kind of get my website, things like that. Not a lot
all
of
right, welcome to
Linleys
an
out
episode of
there.
Panakal podcast.
Yeah, and I used to go by Linley B. That was actually a childhood nickname, so
There you go.
kind of harking back to getting that childhood joy of pursuing my art career and kind of tapping into that.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, somebody was asking me who my guest was for the week, and I'm like, Linley. And then I was like, what's her last
Dramatic
name?
pause. Yeah.
Well, I was just like, you should know this because I don't know if we've been in class together. I've audited.
Yeah,
last session, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, last session you and I were in class together, and this session I audited because I had a baby. So I was like, it's gonna be too hard to. I'll be back in fall though. Are you in the fall class?
I'm not. I'm actually taking a semester off. Too much stuff on my plate this fall. But I hope to be back for spring, either with Scott again because he's amazing, or I really want to take Noni Nelson's class as well. She's got that amazing kind of magic style art class.
We've had Noni on the show before. She's got a huge knowledge base of information to share. I feel like that show could have gone on for a couple hours if we just let
just take Noni's brain for like half a day.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you were at IX with me last year. Did you have to sit down with her at all?
I didn't actually. Unfortunately, I've really only audited her class. So I think I saw her there, but I didn't want to just rush up and be like, "Hey, you don't know me, but I've been watching your class, and it's awesome."
That's everybody who's at IX, by the way.
So, okay, maybe this year I won't be shopping.
Are you going to be at IX this year?
I am. Yeah, I am. I'm really excited. It's a bit of a schlep for us West Coasters, but I just loved it last year. It was kind of my first real con, and it was such a great experience. Not only just getting to kind of see what everyone is doing and see all this amazing art. Some of these artists I've been kind of fans of since I was a kid. And also just the getting to talk to everyone. It's a relatively small con, and people seem to really be there for the networking and to just kind of chat about art, and I really loved that. So I said, okay, we'll do it again.
Nice. Yeah. I love it. It's been a long while since
It's been a minute since you've been there. Yeah. I try to not miss it every year, but some years there's always that year. There's always that feeling like I don't think I can do it this year, and then last year I drove. So
yeah, well, you do like 10 cons or something a year, right? So that's a different kind of thing.
That's a short year for me. There was the worst I've ever. Well, I shouldn't say the worst. The hardest I've ever done was there's a year when I got laid off when I first started this. I think I did. I want to say it was 18 or 19 shows that year. But what I learned from that was it was a lot. But I also had no job and I had no kid, so it's just
that was your job.
That was my job. Just go. But what I did from that is hey, you know what? We should get to the top of the show's topic before I jump.
We
do this every time. Yeah, I'm gonna make a note here and I'm gonna write shows. So we'll come back to shows. So Andrew, I didn't tell Linley about this. So I don't think she has anything prepared. So it might just be you and me, or do you, Linley? Here, I'll let Andrew go first, and then you get an idea of what's going on. Or I can go first if you want.
I'll go first.
Okay.
This past week I was on vacation and stuff, so I really didn't have a whole lot of chance to try to do a lot of different things or whatever, because I was also out of country. But I did read, I haven't finished it yet, but I'm close to finishing it, a book that my wife got me shortly before we left for our trip called The Mountain and the Sea.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a hard sci-fi book. It's about so it's about octopi and artificial intelligence and
I'm looking it up.
Climate change and androids and so many more things.
So is it It's got a cool cover. It's got like
It,
it looks like Mobius.
very, you know who? You know what? I thought for a second the cover was like Tomer Hanuka or someone else, like that
Yeah.
I recognized. That I didn't recognize the artist when I looked inside. I forget who it is actually, but okay. If I had to like distill it down to like just what the meat plot is, like what the main plot is uh, intelligent life has been found. It's not in space though. It's in the sea. A group of octopuses have been discovered having an actual culture.
Okay, that's
And
cool.
they have like a community and everything. They have their own writing and stuff. And this scientist is trying to figure out how to communicate with them in the very limited time that she has, because there's this ticking time clock, this time bomb going off of once people know about this outside of this, it's basically a protected area that they're in.
Sure.
Once people in the rest of the world know about this that's happening here, shit's gonna fly off because there's going to be competing interests coming in. There's likely going to be some riots and violence because that apparently happened before with a android that's also part of the research team, and it is the only android in existence because as soon as it was built, laws were passed everywhere saying like we can never build an artificial intelligence like this ever
So
again
there's one android in the whole world.
in the whole world, and
Interesting.
that android is basically like they kind of spell it out early on. Like this android is like delegated to this research facility, partly for their own safety and partly also because that when they were doing like the public tour circuit, it caused like massive unrest and violence amongst
That
people
sounds about
because
right.
yeah, because people were like, no, we can't accept that there's another intelligent life form out there. What are you talking about? Um, there's also a lot of themes of like late stage capitalism kind of things going on. The ocean is effectively dead outside of like a few areas. Like it's been overfished to the point that there's like massive die off of species and stuff, but there's
This
still
is fiction, right?
this is all fiction,
It
but it's
better be
so
fiction or we're in
yeah,
trouble.
so it is it's written by a marine biologist.
Oh,
Uh
Oh,
wow.
that's cool.
yeah,
Cool.
so it's like it's through his kind of perspective of like how that was the kind of thing that drew me to it. Was a marine biologist writing this piece of sci-fi fiction, which I still don't know how far in the future it is. If I'm gonna take a stab, I'm gonna say like maybe 100, 200 years, something like that.
From our current timeline?
Yeah, I want to say about like from our current time, because like there's a lot of shifted like things that have shifted in terms of like the world powers at play and whatever. Like the United States is not really a thing anymore from what it sounds like. Books aren't really
This
much of
is
a
sounding
thing.
like
Those
an
are just kind of like
actual fiction
relics.
novel now.
Yeah.
Nonfiction.
But yeah, no, highly recommend. I've got like maybe I don't know really know how many chapters I have left because the chapters are like 2 to 3 pages. They're very
Gotcha.
quick chapters. So it's like
That's like
I'm on like
reading. Go ahead. It's like journal
oh,
format almost.
kinda, yeah, like, I'm on chapter, like, 43, and
So
it's like, it doesn't feel like I've read 43 chapters
the
compared to, like,
artist's
some other
name, by
things
the
I've
way,
read.
is Maria. I don't know if her middle name is Jesus or Jesus, but Maria J. Contreras. Contreras.
Oh,
Contreras. She did the cover on the paperback anyway. Mainly
let me
works in
see
analog
what
and
that
digital mediums.
is. What I'm, like,
Sounds like a
having
cool
double
read. It's always interesting to have people who are kind of specialists in their area and then kind of use that to inform their fiction writing.
yeah, like,
That's a
yeah, I
smart
love
play.
that kind of thing, and, yeah, just there's a lot of, like, his background that informs the book and everything, and a lot of the themes, and this book once we got back from our trip, I also started playing another game called Dave the Diver, and like this book combined with that, like just kind of reaffirmed it for me that like I really, really like sea
You're like
themed
living your
things.
best life right there.
Yeah, like ocean themed things are my jam. For
So
a
you made
person
that
that
comment in the group about Dave the Diver and how much you're enjoying that, and I was gonna make a comment about your D&D character, but I, for the life of me, could not remember his name. Oddball,
oddball.
oddball. I remember it now that we're live, but at
That
that
sounds like a
moment,
James Bond villain a little bit. I kind of love it.
he created this Andrew's D. We'll talk about D&D later if we want, but Andrew's D&D characters are some of the best I've seen when I play D&D with my friends. So,
Nice.
because he's coming from a side of like not being like a serious, like the rest of us are like we're overthinking it. We're trying to create this perfect character, and Andrew's like he's just an odd fish man. He's from I don't know why the screen's just shifted for anyone, but there it goes.
Oh, sorry, that might have been me muting myself. I'm not sure.
Muting yourself shouldn't do it again. Let's see what happens. Nothing. All right.
Do it?
For
Okay.
some reason,
Weird.
it's
I don't know.
whatever. But like he's got this like he had this like fish character that's from like an Atlantis type kingdom, and he was walking around drinking two pails of beer at one point or ale, and it's just and then like you think that's a cool character, and then we play another campaign, and he creates like Bob Law, which is this blob Law, that's his name,
Blah
and
blah.
I care the character I made in Scott's class, Merrick the fairy. So the
Yeah.
fairy's from that campaign. I carry him around in a jar with me that I can throw. And that's what I was trying to explain to Scott in class. So then I've kind of leaned in, and then by the time we got to our third campaign, we both created crazy characters. So I'm like, okay, this is more fun this way. But we could talk about D&D forever.
Highly recommend that book though if you like sci-fi.
I'm actually gonna pick it up when if I see it later. I've got like this growing stack of books.
Oh yeah.
wow.
And I've been trying to finish. I just finished wherever he may be. Oh yeah, this I already hawked this book, so I'm not gonna talk about it. But Dark Harvest, I highly recommend this book. Stephen King really liked it, so I picked it up. It's literally 170 pages. It was a quick read. I loved it. And then I just picked up Midnight Library, half price books. If you haven't read this, it's basically like I'm not gonna talk about it. I won't hawk it. Look it up.
Oh.
What I want to talk about on the show is I'm wearing the hat from it, and this is the book. It's an RPG called Baskrim, and I got the elevator pitch because I didn't memorize it. But it's basically the universe is coming to a horrible end because most of humanity has been infected with parasitic worms. Those left are fighting back to try to find a way into another universe. So the idea is like our world is slowly ending. Excuse me, and you have to basically either try to leave the universe or do whatever you want before the world ends. And it's based on it's a rules light gaming system. I've got some artwork in this book, by the way, if you want to help plug it.
Cool.
But my friend Brian Colin and his buddy Ross Brandt, who's working on designing book 2 for me for Ancient Ones, they both created this whole book. And you've got this idea of like this world is ending, and you have it's a rules light system based on. Do you know what Mork Borg is? Mork Borg is actually a rules light system.
I remember Brian mentioning it.
Yeah, so he built it off of that, mixed with some of his own rule sets. And then, so the idea of the game is when you start playing the game with your friends, you will roll dice to see how many days till the world ends. And sometimes it's 3 days, sometimes it's like a week, it could be like a year, whatever, right? But like if you're playing a game, let's say the DM's like you have 3 days before the world ends. So you're going to be as wild and chaotic as you want to be for 3 days, technically, because the world is going to end. Doesn't matter. Unless you figure out a way into another universe, which I don't think anyone ever has. But they were talking about how... So they played this at Origins 2 weeks ago, the guys, and Steven Najarian, who's a friend of ours in the group, he got kicked into a hell dimension. He was wilding, and apparently that's what they did with him. Last time I played it at GaryCon with Brian and his friends, I threw a guy out of the airlock because he was making me feel a little uncomfortable. He was talking kind of funny to these kids we found. I'm like, this guy is a cultist. And also the world was ending in 3 days. So it didn't matter what I did, right? But, it's I don't know how to describe it other than it's just fun. If you're willing to, if you don't take it seriously, and you're willing to say, I'm just going to have a good time, I'm going to be as wild and chaotic as possible. Like, the first time I was testing this game before we started kickstarting it, I remember I basically stole from a merchant. I stole another gun from another guy. I shot a bunch of people. I just kept going on. And it was just, the idea is like the crazier you get, the crazier the world's going to get for you too, right? Like and you could get infected. So then there's that whole thing there. You get infected with a parasite, a whole other bag of tricks opens up for you. So, but yeah, so that's what I want to talk about is Vast Grim. I like the fact that Brian's made it quick. It's a quick play, and it's it's a small book, and I will talk about another series next time.
What's an average gameplay session time wise?
I mean, you could probably cook one out in about an hour and a half to 2 hours, because
Okay.
the character creation stuff is not like it's not as
Super deep because
time consuming as like D&D, where you're like, I want to be a rogue, I want to be this. You basically there's Brian set up this page which is a generator. You just go on there, you randomly click, and you can be like I can't remember what the classes are, but it's like android, like I want to say it's like android, scientist, pirate. I don't remember. See, here's one of my it's right here.
Nice.
So, but like there's 5 or 6 character classes, and basically the randomizer selects it, and then you get like one weapon. Like I was an android who couldn't see with his eyes, something like that. I had sensors, if I remember correctly. So I had enhanced sensors, so I was like Daredevil. So like I can drop a link to it later, but I think the only problem I've seen with this game is it's hard to convince the D&D crowd to try something different. I think Linley, you've met Elise Stewart. She's been in Scott's class. Elise's family loves this game. So they were talking. Okay. Yeah, last year when I was there, they're like, we love this. We play this all the time. And it's cool to hear when people like spend the time on it, because it's like, it's not like D&D, right? Like we can play D&D anytime we want. So it's kind of like, let's try something different, right? And I met these guys at the show who made another game based off the Mork Borg system. They call it Pirate Borg, and I'll plug them later. But it's basically the same thing. It's a rules light, but it's based on the Mork Borg system with pirates. And I was like, that's cool. Andrew, you might actually like that one more. But yeah, so Vast Grim, he has tons of things coming out for this. He's got a lot of expansions. He's got I think he's working on the second book. And then there's other things I'm not allowed to talk about. So yeah, that's my product for the day. And he gave me this cool hat, and I like pink, so I'll wear it. Except I can't wear it outside because it's super hot.
Yeah.
It's got no like
breathability.
Yeah, I talked to him about that. So I was also going to quickly mention that I found Fun Dip at Origins. If you guys remember Fun Dip.
They still make Fun Dip?
That's what I said, right? I'm like, this has got to be some old ass Fun Dip you're about to sell me. And it's actually not. He said they still make it. This expires in August of 2024. So I got about a month to eat this still. Oh, no, wait, I got a year.
Yeah.
2023. But you guys remember Fun Dip, right? Linley, you ever have Fun Dip?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that and like Nerds, I think. That kind of.
Oh, I got some Nerds here. They're down there. Those are my kids.
Yeah.
My kid actually also found a push pop, which is.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I have to keep the candy in here or she eat it all.
My daughter's been crazy about ring pops lately.
Which she likes ring pops too, but she eats half of it and wants me to put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the fridge and then get it later. I'm like, that's disgusting.
Oh, yeah, just finish it in one go.
I don't understand. Eat it, man. Be a kid. Finish that candy off.
It's a lot of sugar, though. I feel her. But yeah, after it's been in a bag.
Well, this stuff, like the Fun Dip and all that, reminds me of, I was talking about this earlier. When I was a kid, my dad would give me a $5 a week allowance. And $5 could get me, I'd go buy a comic book. I'd ride my bike up to this place called Jack's Videos, where I'd rent a video game, usually a Nintendo game. I'd play some arcade games there, and I'd get a bunch of candy, and I could do all that with $5.
That's a good week.
Yeah, it was fun. I was a fat little kid, but I got it done. And then now Linley, what?
I said the simpler times when $5 could make your week.
Dude, I could make $5 last, and then now it's like for $5 you probably can't even rent a game. Yeah, I ain't drinking no Starbucks.
Good for you. Yeah.
I mean, I drink it at the shows because it's all that's there. Origins is smart. All they have is a Starbucks in there, and I'm just like, where's the cheap coffee? Hotel coffees. I might as well drink water.
Not worth it.
I don't know if you have anything you want to talk about, Linley, like we just did, but if you don't, we can just move on.
Sure. Yeah, I don't necessarily have a book or a game on the top of my head, although I did just recently get Everdell, and I've heard great things about that, so I'm excited to get into
What's
that.
Everdell?
It's a kind of woodland, Redwall-esque game, so it's like cute little creatures, but kind of a medieval fantasy society. I couldn't tell you more than that. I honestly bought it because it got amazing reviews and I fell in love with the
Oh yeah,
art. So
I've
I'll
seen
tell
this
you more about that gameplay when I get into it, but I'm really excited
sure.
for that. And then my main kind of plug, I guess I would say, is I got lucky enough to get invited for an artist residency in a few weeks. So I'm heading back to Pennsylvania, and it's the Finley's View Farm Artist Residency. So I'm plugging them. It's a great couple, TG and Anne Marie Field, who run this, and I actually met up met up with them and heard about this opportunity at IX last year.
Okay.
So yeah, shout out to them. Seems like they have a couple artists out every year. They themselves are really avid sci-fi fantasy art collectors. I'm actually really excited to see kind of they have some amazing original magic card art and some things like that.
They were at
And
the show. They were walking
yeah,
around, obviously.
yeah, and they took out an ad in the kind of like program guide for this retreat, and I said, okay, why not? Let's see. And yeah, they picked me out. I forget who the other artist is. I'd have to take a look, but it's two per year. So yeah, really excited for that. It's also it's like an hour outside of Philly, so it's kind of near IX over by Reading. And it's near also the Brandywine Museum of Art, where the Brandywine School of
Love
Art
that
was.
museum.
I want to check
So,
that out all the time, but I just never have the time. It's not near the show. You got to drive like an hour away, I think.
You know what
yeah,
you got to do is like hit it up when you're heading out of the town.
there you go. Yeah, on
That's
your
not
way
a bad
out.
idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
I should
that's
map
what
it
we
out for
did last
next
time
year.
we did it.
Okay, I'll have to map it
Yeah.
out next time. I mean, I'm driving in. It's just
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you got time.
I got time to sort it out. Well, that sounds cool as long as they're not like oddball Scientologists or something.
Not that I know of. They seem like lovely folks and huge art nerds, so
That's
really
Okay, that's cool.
excited.
that's really awesome.
Yeah. They've got some goats and horses, so I'm hoping to get to do some animal life drawing, which is not really something you get to do much of at all.
No.
Unless cats maybe, but or dogs, but
I still
yeah,
haven't
so
finished that centaur because horses are so freaking hard to. Remember, I
hey,
started
well,
that twice in Scott's class now.
oh yeah. Well, if you need some horse help, I was a riding coach actually for a long time and competed for a little while as well. So I know my way around a horse. So brushed a lot of horses over the years.
That's you've been around, man. Jesus.
What you do if you're really
Oh,
struggling with centaurs is you just make a manotar instead.
You reverse
Half
it.
man and
can you
half
elaborate?
man.
No, that this is get out of here, Andrew. I mean, I'm almost done. I mean, my goal is to finish that piece in Scott's class this term. We'll see.
Nice. That's a good
It's like
goal.
one of those pieces that consistently haunts me. Like, get it done. It's right there. The story's already
Anything
done.
with 6 legs is hard. 6 limbs of any kind. It's just it's a little
A
hard.
lot to
I mean,
track.
I remember when I did the arachnid character in one of the earliest classes I took with him. He was
Oh
like,
man,
"Do you
it's
know
even
what a
more
spider
like
looks like?" He made me look up I hate spiders, and he made me research so many spiders, and I was just like, ugh. And then he's like, "They've got like this sack, and you got to draw the sack under them, and all this." I'm just like, oh, nightmares. Like I was like, I got it done, and at the end it looks great, but I was just
nice.
like, I don't like this because I was taking the easy route, and I was like looking up driders, D&D
Sure.
driders and stuff. I'm like, these are good enough, and he's like, look up actual spiders. I'm just like, fuck you.
Yeah, Scott's not
like,
messing around with the reference. You gotta have good reference. So
yeah, you got to have good reference. That's one of those things I learned in his class where it's just like you saw the 3D models that I showed for the fairy and stuff. Andrew's the one who helped me with those. Like
oh,
they help.
cool.
Like and at
They
the
really do.
for like
Was that
my
blend as, or what were you creating
we
her
did it
in?
in Daz and then bought it into Blender.
Yeah,
Nice.
the initial like for the fairy at least like the base mesh was Daz, and then we did the wings in Blender, and then did the turnarounds in Blender as well.
Okay, cool. I actually just downloaded Blender today, with the hope
Hey,
that it will encourage me to actually learn to use it. So
I mean,
fingers crossed.
hopefully.
Yeah.
We had Stanko on a couple weeks back, and he was trying to convince us to get ZBrush going, and I'm like, so like he did this piece back here. Oh, let me do it this way. That one is done in
Oh,
ZBrush,
cool.
and then he painted it, right? So
Nice.
this is the wall of originals, by the way.
Yeah,
See
that's quite a
that's my mess
collection.
over there. Ignore everything over there.
Eh, what's a good office without some mess?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a mess, really. It's really like these are supplies for the shows. That's my guitar. Those are my books. These are random statues. Like this is my
Nice.
sack of books.
Do you play guitar?
A little bit. I'm not like a rock star or anything. It's
That's
Scott's
okay.
fault. I had retired from practicing or playing for years, and then there was an AllenPanakal where it was Scott, IrisCon, Pete, myself, and Christina Ree were just sitting around, and somehow we went into a conversation about guitars, and then Scott
Nice.
and I were just started talking, and all of a sudden I was pulling my guitar back out, and then he would send me like new guitars that he was painting. You know, he's got like six. If you
Oh
if you
yeah,
would ever just turn his camera for us in class, he's got like 50 or 60 guitars on the wall just to his like left.
that's
Like
nuts. Oh man. Okay.
he
I knew
like
he loved guitars, but that's next level.
he also paints them, fixes them up, and then resells them, right? So that's the only reason he's able to buy so many, right? He just buys,
He
sells,
flips
buys,
them
sells.
like old cars.
I mean, he sold the one that he showed us in class,
Yeah, that was sick. That was super
so,
cool.
and I was just like, yeah, that's and I've asked him if I bought. So this is just a Squires, the lowest of the lowest tier, next to like something you find in a trash can. It's just it's good enough. I purposely practice on that
Exploit.
because it forces you to like tune the guitar every time, and it's just a janky old guitar, but it's my guitar. But I asked him if he'd draw something on there for me, and I still haven't convinced him to do it. But I was like, I'm driving, man. I'll bring the guitar to you. You have a whole week. I just want him to just like draw like a skull on there or something. Because I have his, I've got his skulls when he's talking about that in class. So like, it's
Yeah,
hard to
you
see
have
because
is
of the
it the
glare.
crown one?
This
The
is
crown
the
skull?
this is the crown one right here, but there's a glare on it, so it's hard to see.
Yeah.
And then right above it is
You're
this.
the one that owns that one. All right.
Yeah, I own the crown. This this way. That's Teresa's.
Oh,
So he
cool.
likes the fact that I have him and Teresa right next to each other. It's a skull, and then this like
That
beautiful
is very
face.
sweet.
And then this
Classic.
one up here is the first one in the second series, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if I'll buy one every year. I'm like, I'm not gonna buy one this year, but then it's like they're so good, and if you guys get a chance to buy an original at the cost he's selling them at, it's worth it. Like they're not
Yeah.
like
No, they're not. They're not expensive.
I'm not gonna name the costs because that's his business, but they're not as expensive as you think they are. They are pricier if you don't have them. I basically what I've been doing now since shows have been somewhat good to me in the last couple of years. I saved some money throughout the year slowly. I put aside like $100 after every show or so, and in my head
Oh,
I'm like
nice.
I'm gonna, and that's my AllenPanakal budget basically.
Nice.
So I can
That's
pick
so
up.
good.
Yeah. So last year I think I picked up Teresa's piece. I did not buy a skull from Scott last year. I bought Teresa's piece, and then I bought I want to say I bought the Sandman. So there's a Sandman way over there, way in the corner there.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
What's his
that's
name?
super cool.
I forgot his name. Tom? Oh, what's his name? It's like a he looks
It'll
like a
come
body.
through.
It's like a bodybuilder dude. Hang on.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's the
Last name
danger
is-
of
I think his name is Tom Flon. I can never remember his name because I see him at DragonCon and LuxCon. He's always super nice to me, but he's like we've seen him around the show. He's got like a ponytail. He looks like he could throw a couple people through a wall because he's super built. So he had that piece, and I'm just like, I really want it, but it's also like I try to like figure out what I'm gonna hang because you could see I have a lot of smaller originals. Because in my head I was like, I want to be able to hang. I got a lot of originals that I haven't hung up because it's just don't have the space. I mean, I got this wall in front of me, but I don't want to fill up. This is not a museum; it's a studio, So,
Now, why not both?
because I want to put shelves up here, so I can get these books off the floor.
There you
Like,
go. There you go.
belong there. But you before we broke into the talk about the other stuff, I was talking about shows, and that's you were asking about. Have you done other than LuxCon? Have you done any shows? No.
No,
Okay.
that was my first show, and I jumped in like a crazy person with both feet and did the showcase like my first year, which was
Yeah.
probably unnecessary, but it was a really good
No, it's
learning
worth.
experience.
That's how you
No,
learn.
that's a great show to get your feet wet on.
It's a good place to
Mhm.
learn because you're surrounded by people that like you. Um, yeah,
That always
that's how
helps.
I didn't know you were there till I walked around the floor. And I'm like, hey, what's up?
Same, yeah. And you always have such an incredibly impressive booth. For those of you who have not seen Alan's booths at these shows,
Dude,
it's
thanks.
pretty incredible. Yeah, it's like 3 stories, like everything's laid out perfectly. Looks like Disneyland. It's great in the best way.
Ooh,
Um,
okay. I was gonna be like,
I
don't
mean,
compare
that's
me to
not
Disney.
the scary like line part, but the like everything's designed perfectly and set out in a very like visually pleasing
I
manner.
don't. Yeah, I don't like. Even though my studio's a mess, I don't like my displays to be like chaos. So I'm very like.
Sure.
I like to keep them crisp. But yeah, what you saw at LuxCon was like a third of what I. So I have a big. This year's Gen Con booth is what's going to be probably the best booth. We'll see. It's a 10 by 20, so I have to like.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
mapping it out and trying to decide if I want to do like do I want to put tables all around or do I want to do the snake? Like do I want it like you can do where people can walk in and then there's a corner, which is what I might do because I want people to kind of get in closer to look at the big metals, but
Sure.
I'm playing around with it. It's going to be a game time decision because sometimes people don't want to step in; they just want to buy stuff and leave. You know,
Yeah,
so
some
that's
people are weird about that.
I mean, it only works if like I feel like the walk-in method only works if you have a product that you want people to look at really close, like an original painting. In my case, it's original because I created it, but it's also digital, so it's not like you need to get up close to look at paint. So I can easily just have tables and then have everything behind it, and that leaves me floor space for product, which you can't see because it's back there. Which is what I might do. It works. It's worked every year. Like why reinvent the wheel is the way I tell my assistants. I'm like, this works. We don't need to do anything different. So, but yeah, like I was saying that one year I did the 19 shows or so. It's like that's how I figured out what shows work and what shows don't. So like now, like
Sure.
this year, I think I did 7, no,
Okay.
9.
What shows besides Ilix would you say are the most kind of worthwhile, specifically for like a sci-fi fantasy crowd?
Um,
We're in Pacific Northwest, right? Or
Yes,
sorry,
yeah, Portland area.
no, not
Yeah.
Pacific North. Uh, ECC
Emerald
or
City's a good one. Yeah.
yeah, Emerald
Oh,
City. Isn't there? Well, San Diego, I guess, is on the same coast. You could
You
do
could
that.
try San Diego. It's a
okay.
different
I actually
beast.
went there. I used to go there as a teenager when you could actually buy tickets, like
Yeah.
not,
I mean,
within
if you
30.
want to come there this year, I can try to see if I can get you a ticket, but I gotta see how many badges.
There's isn't there another convention like around Portland,
So
Alan?
there's Rose City, which is in Portland.
Yeah.
Um, it's a hit or miss. Like for me, I always did decent at it, but not so good that I'm like I'll be back. I used to go because again I did decent, and I had a friend who lived there, so I would stay with him and his girlfriend, and so I had room and board was covered. So like so I was able to cut my expenses down that way. But it's worth trying. It's called Rose City. Bruce does it all the time. He seems to do really well there, but he also lives there. So
Yeah,
um,
that's fair. I mean, that's very close to where I am as well. I think one of my other peers from Scott's class that just finished is also going to be there. So maybe I can pick their brain a little bit about it, see if I want to do that for next year.
I mean, it's worth trying just to get an Artist Alley booth there, and then, but specifically sci-fi, like Gen Con is a good show if you get juried into the art show. But it is in Indiana, so it's a bit of a hike. Um, Dragon Con is good so the thing with Dragon Con is I always tell people like if you want to get like your name recognition, like you want to get your face on the board, then do the art show because you'll make good money and people will get to know you. I built my IP there, like I built a fan base and my mailing list by doing the art show. But if you're like,
Nice.
hey, I just want to sell stuff and make money, then try for the vendor hall. They have like a fourth floor where people have artists, like if you have fan art or whatever, they have a whole art show up there on the fourth floor. But you're basically saying I don't care if people get to. I mean, they'll still know who you are, but I feel like the art show at the Hyatt is where like people got to know me on a personal level, and that helped build my fan base for when I
Okay.
launch my different products and stuff. So,
That's great.
but yeah, if you do Emerald City, that's Reed Pop, so you can easily try Like C2E2 here in Chicago is good. What's the other one?
There
I
is,
forget.
isn't there Denver
So
Fan
apparently,
Expo?
Denver Fan
Or
Expo
is
was
that a
last
mess
weekend.
now?
No, it was apparently everyone who worked the show last weekend did amazing at it. Like,
Oh, that's good.
so I don't. I've been thinking about doing it again, but my stuff I noticed has been doing really well at anime shows, so I might actually stick to those. Like,
That's fair. What
yeah,
was the Denver show called? It was Denver
it's
Comic
just
Con,
Denver
or
Comic Con.
Fan Expo, I think
Fan
is what it's
Expo
called,
is the
right?
company that owns it. Yeah, Fan X.
okay, cool.
They do have like I don't know. So the last time I did Denver, I was like hot and cold with them because they gave away my corner booth, so I had to get an
Ooh.
inline, and I was like I already drove to fucking Colorado, so I was like I gotta set up. So I took the booth because I was like I'm here, and then they gave another corner booth away to an artist who was like she didn't even want it, and then I was like well you switch with me, and then someone convinced her to stay there, so she stayed, and I was just like well, what the fuck, and then the whole show was just like I did okay at it, but at the end of the show, you have to, so when you load in, you have to use Union. They put it all on a they have like those airport taxis or whatever you call
Oh,
them.
Yeah, the luggage carts
You
or
have to
whatever.
load all your stuff on there, how many ever trips it takes, and they'll drive you over to your table and back. Because you're not allowed to unload your stuff yourself, unless like some artists have like just suitcases and you just walk in. Right, no one's gonna stop you. But then at the end of the show, they don't want you using a cart to take stuff out. They want you to wait till these union guys show up to help you haul stuff out. And I was like, my friend and I basically figured out you can park in a parking lot above it and just take an elevator out. So that's what I did. I was like, I'm not fucking waiting around here for these guys because you got to go to the marshalling yard and get permission to load out. It's a whole process. And I'm just like,
a
so
lot
I
of
feel like,
logistics.
well, I feel like if I did the show again, I would not. I would definitely fly in, and I would bring just 2 suitcases full of stuff. Like I wouldn't have it in such a way that I had to have to wait for this car to drive me around because it's a waiting game, and sometimes you just want to leave the show when you're done. You're like, why am I waiting? It's the same thing at San Diego, right? So I bring everything in suitcases because San Diego they make you load up your stuff in the dock out back. You have to like
Hmm.
wrap it all up, and then the union guys will bring it to your booth whenever they get to it. And at the end of the show, you wrap it all up, and you sit there waiting for them to come pick it up and take it away,
That's
to
so odd.
ship it out.
Why do
Yeah,
you think they do it that way? Do you have any idea?
supposedly it's to keep people from messing up the showroom floors and stuff. But it's all union, so these union guys are like, we get paid.
It could just be like union Teamster laws in
Yes.
place for it.
It could
So
be,
on one
yeah.
hand, you're like, good for them. And on the other hand, you're like, this is annoying because I just want to leave. So it's nice
Yeah.
when I work San Diego now. At the end of the show, we just break everything down and just leave. The only thing that sucks is we have to haul our stuff about to the Marriott, which is about a block up. But
See,
I worked a sweet deal with a Lyft driver last year, so he was picking us up anytime I called him, and I just
there you
paid him.
go.
I just paid him in cash. I won't name him. I don't want to get him in trouble. But like I literally just called him and said, pick us up at this time in the morning, pick us up at this time at night. And there's one night he didn't come because he's an older gentleman. He was like, I'm not really feeling like coming out, and I was like, fine. But I told him on the day of loadout, I'm like, don't leave us hanging, man, because it's hard to get a vehicle, So, but
Yeah, definitely check out like talk to some other artists that are in the area near you because they'll tell you like what cons they go to that are nearby for a close drive.
Local.
I would do
Yeah.
local first just to get, because what's going to teach you is, do you want to do shows? Like
Also,
Yeah.
LuxCon
low
wasn't,
cost kind
yeah.
of ways. Yeah.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, a
The
LuxCon
travel.
isn't as busy. Like when you do something like Emerald City, for example, there's going to be, it's going to be like nonstop. You're going to have somebody walking by your booth like every like 5 minutes, every like 2 minutes. So it's like, I know for a fact if I leave my booth, I get anxiety because I don't like being in crowds. But on the other side
Yeah.
of the booth, I'm relatively okay if I can
And there,
Okay.
engage with the customer.
depending on what city you're outside of, there might be like a smaller convention that's not really like known or whatever, has a name to it that's like runs just like one day or maybe like 2 days or something at that. And like
Yeah.
those are pretty good just to get a feel of like, do I like doing this? Do I like talking to someone?
Yeah. Yeah,
Dude,
absolutely. Because I mean, I think it definitely takes specific skill set that is not art to do well at these cons in terms of just talking to people and kind of marketing and all that stuff. So I fully admit that is not necessarily my strong suit, although I'm happy to talk to people about art. But yeah, I'm still kind of getting used to that. So I think your points are good about kind of starting with some more local stuff. And yeah, because IX was amazing, but even that was kind of a lot for me coming from not doing any of these
Well, from
kind
not
of
doing anything, yeah.
I
yeah.
think
I mean,
also
it helps if you
it,
have like. Go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
I was gonna say that one IX is really really good because you're not like hassled in the same way you are at like a regular convention where that like a regular convention very much is like buyer seller relationship. Whereas, like you said, like X is a IX is a networking convention first and foremost.
Yeah.
So pretty much everyone there that's looking to buy something, and everyone there that's like at a table, it's like that all is secondary stuff. It's all the networking is the primary thing. So as a result, like it's way more chill, way more relaxed in that regard.
Yeah.
Because
Takes a
you can,
little of the pressure off.
it takes some of the pressure off. You can
I
kind
mean, you're
of bubble
technically
around a
still
little.
networking when you're at these shows at a Comic Con or something. It's just a little bit more. People coming to your
It's
booth
not the
can't really.
primary
Yeah, it's not the
motivator.
primary reason you're there. Exactly. You're there to sell stuff, right? But
Yeah.
I always tell my assistants, I'm like, don't focus on the sale. Don't try to like make the sale. Like focus on talking about. That's why I tell people have something to talk about. What's your work about? Like in my case, I talk about my series. I talk about the stories. I used to put the stories on the back of the art, but then I found people were picking it up and reading it and then not really talking to me about it. So then I
Okay.
took them off because now I'm just like, we're gonna talk. You asked me about that piece, and I'll tell you about it. Which is a half and half because some people don't. They're just as shy as you are. They don't want to talk,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
they probably have just as much anxiety as you do. So you start small. If they seem interested, then you talk to them about that. Sometimes I talk to them just about random things, right? Like they could be like wearing a specific shirt, or like I had a guy at my booth at C2E2 had a shirt on from a band called The Midnight, and he had a shirt and a hat. I'm like, oh shit, I just heard about this band. They're a synthwave band, and I like synthwave, obviously. And so him and I started talking about that for 10, 15 minutes while my assistant was handling customers. And he didn't buy anything, but he came back later and bought something. But at that moment, he didn't buy anything. I thought, whatever. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna move you into a direction of a sale. I want you to want the work. That's how you should be teaching all your customers. Anyone listening, same thing. Stop forcing the sale. Like, it'll happen if they want your work. They're gonna buy it. They've already made up their mind when they step forward if they want your stuff or not.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other
Yeah,
thing.
you don't want to be pushy about it.
Correct. Because if you're pushy about it and they buy something and they walk away, they might go home and be like, why did I buy this?
Yeah.
And then you lost a repeat customer for starters, right?
Yeah.
You want, and also a lot of my customers now who buy stuff from me are like people I talk to at shows, and now they're like friends. And they've
Sure.
moved, up the ranks per se. Like they started buying print and now they're buying the metals, and then sometimes they buy something bigger like a book, right?
So Lindley, the IX was your first convention then. Like, are you mostly doing freelance
Yeah.
instead, or okay?
Yeah, most of what I do is freelance. A lot of it is just private clients for like D&D characters, items actually a lot.
Mm.
That's something I kind of focused on in Scott's class because it's just something I love to do.
I gotta say quickly on the side, some of your artifacts are some of the best artifacts I've seen.
Yeah, thank you. That means a
Yeah.
lot. Appreciate that.
Every time she puts out an artifact, I'm like, dang, that's really good. I mean, they're really good. Some of them are on our website, so.
Yeah, I've put up a few. Yeah, I really love it. Like I was saying in our last class, I try to treat those as character portraits, right? Like who is the person using this, and how might their style and like preferences and stuff be kind of reflected in the items that I'm doing. So that's one thing I do some of. I actually kind of got my start. So I've had a bunch of different jobs. I did not actually start working as an artist until a couple years ago, and one of my first big jobs was actually with a folklore archive because I had to, yeah, so it's like I did my master's in art in Scotland, and I ran into this group who was collecting like folk tales and stories from around their country, and then they were turning that
Cultists,
into like
man.
an
Don't lie
online
to
archive.
us.
It was so interesting. But yeah, so they were looking for artists to do illustrations to go with a lot of these stories, and then they actually started doing a podcast as well. So it's Folklore Scotland, and
That's cool.
I kind of started off doing stuff for them, and that was really fun. And a lot of that stuff was actually pen and ink, and then I just kind of
Is that a
started
lot of
doing.
the line art stuff that's on your website?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I had been doing for a long time, just for kind of fun. And then I started moving into doing some digital color with the pen and ink when I realized that everyone seems you kind of need to do digital, at least be
It's just if you want to
proficient.
get fast work done. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of went into that. And then the last year's really been focusing on trying to get my digital painting skills up, keep growing that. So I feel like I can hopefully get some bigger clients as well. Because of course I have, like so many of us, I have my own kind of IP game in the works that I want to do. But obviously I would love to work for big clients like
Sure.
D&D or any Wizards franchise
I
stuff.
mean, I don't see why D&D it doesn't. You got to send. Did you send your stuff into Kate after class?
I did. I mean,
Good.
she was so nice about encouraging us all to send samples.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I got the automatic reply email that Hasbro was closed for this past week. So we'll see if my email
Oh,
even gets buried. But
Oh,
if
just
not,
follow
I'll
up.
send her some stuff in a few months, and we'll see if
Yeah.
that goes anywhere. But I'm really, really just kind of loving doing a lot of these personal projects because you get to really sit down and hear about people's D&D characters, which I just think is so fun. And most of the time that's good. You only occasionally get people that will write you like 3 pages worth of description and like none of it is actually relevant to what their
Yeah, yeah.
character looks like.
Oh,
But
trust
that's
me, I've gotten stuff like that from players, and I'm just like, you want me to read all this? Just tell me what this character does.
yeah, like
Looking at
what color
you,
hair
Ben
do I
Hill. I'm
have?
looking at you, Ben.
So yeah, are you guys do you guys have a D&D group all together or how many games would you say that you're
We
in?
haven't played in a minute because we've all been just busy with life.
and
But
yeah, oh, life.
Happens.
there's I'm in one group with artists, and then Andrews and Jason Smith, who I think he was in class with us the semester before.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
Jason was running a Spelljammer campaign, so Andrew and I
And then
jumped in on that.
we also have like not really a one shot, but it's basically like if there's enough of us that can get together, but not everyone.
Everyone.
And Claire, our friend Claire, runs a campaign
Ghost
as
hunt. We're
well.
ghost hunters,
Yeah,
basically.
Ghost Hunt.
Ooh,
So
that sounds fun.
that
Okay.
one is
And
cool, but
that one you're actually starting to get a little interesting with characters and
yeah,
stuff.
I'm a little like Tabaxi kitten ghost hunter that talks to I've got artifacts that use to hunt ghosts, and then he's like a fucking mushroom that's gonna die in a week.
Oh
Well,
man, I
so
love it.
no, so what happened was like I found this homebrew race that I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. It's oh, what are they called? Dicaria or Dicaria?
Wait, is
Yeah,
it like
Dicari.
radishes?
Kinda, yeah. Well, like so they are mushrooms. Like they are definitely
Okay,
mushrooms.
okay.
But they're very diminutive. They're only like I think
We're
3
the
feet
smallest
tall.
players in the game, I think. We're both
Yeah,
tiny.
yeah, exceedingly short. And then like my mushroom people apparently like they have a lifespan of like 12 months at maximum.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, like I'm playing it from like the standpoint of like this one is the descendant of like a long line of like ghost hunters. To them,
Oh,
it's like a long line of ghost hunters. To everyone else,
right.
it's been
Like
like 5
5 years.
years. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
barely anything. But me, I'm like, oh yeah, that was my great 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 ancestor. And it's
That's
like,
so
yeah,
fun.
they've been through some crazy shit. We've heard stories of this. It's like, yeah, no, that was like two
That was
weeks
like
ago.
last week.
Yeah, yeah,
We
exactly.
haven't played in a minute because everyone's been. So Claire's
Just
been
busy.
busy. Jason's been busy. He's got freelance work now too, and then we just as soon as summer hits, it's show season, right? So
Yeah.
it's really hard to. And then there's another campaign that I'm in with artists that one's more. So I'm in a campaign with some artists that's a little more serious, I guess I would say. It's like
Okay. More kind
our
of
character.
classic
Yeah, it's kind of
fantasy.
like all our characters have taken like kind of a deep dive. We've all got like somewhat painful backstories, and we're still growing out of it. Like that's the one I did the Rogan that's giving the middle finger. His
Okay.
name's Bastion. He's probably the best character I've ever made, and then he's been at standby for the last like 3 months or so because everyone's
That's so
busy.
tough. You
Yeah, I
spend all this
mean,
time with the character, you get so excited, you have like 1 or 2 sessions, and then someone like,
no, we played these characters for almost, I would say, almost a year and a half,
oh,
a
very
while,
cool.
and
Yeah.
then we've been on hold, and then the Spelljammer one, Jason's, we played for a couple months, and then
Yeah.
and then we made the
The issue
the
is like
Ghost
some
Hunters
people had
one.
to move house, and then some
Yeah,
other people got busy with work, and
it's
no
You know
one's
what?
schedule
As soon as
didn't line
fall,
up right.
winter comes back, we'll be back in play. I'm sure of it. It's
Yeah,
just
most
right
Makes
likely.
now
sense.
it's summer's always going to be the busy show season for everybody. So, um, but yeah, the Ghost Hunters thing was because of that, and then what I've been doing is just running one shots with my friends here. Just the
That's
guy
a
next
great
door,
one.
actually, my neighbor was asking me if he's never played D&D. He's been asking to play, and I was like, I can just run a live one shot for you, man. Actually, I started working on my own expansion based on the Ancient Ones. I have an Ancient Ones RPG
Oh,
being play
cool.
tested.
Oh,
Um,
awesome. I didn't know that. Congrats. That's cool.
Thanks. Let's hopefully it's not broken. But
Or fixable if it is, but
I had this idea for an expansion based on that, and it's done. So I'm just trying to. I'm hoping to get the teaser ready in time for Gen Con, so I can have it out there for. I mean, I've got the. This is the treatment for it right here. But I need to design it and print it, and then I'm trying to work a deal with different. There's a couple companies that are at Gen Con who are like, we can host it for you if you kickstart it, and we'll take a cut. But some of these companies want like 15%. I'm not gonna name them, but I was like, that's too high. Like, I'm a
sure.
small time artist trying to build a business. How about 5%? Like, but we'll see. Um, but I actually started playing this campaign with some artists, and then that one broke up because two of my friends in there are working on their own thing, and they were like, we might have a
Yeah.
conflict of interest, which I was like, all right, well, we got to start this from scratch, and it hasn't happened yet. So that's welcome to D&D, right? Like, it could
Something
just,
like that.
but like Irish lore sounds interesting as fuck. I've used some of it in some of my writing. There's actually a book that
Or
you should
it's
look up.
Irish or is it Scottish?
Scottish. Yeah,
Scottish?
Andrew.
Oh,
Gotcha.
okay. This
Got it.
might be. I don't know if Vassian is Scottish.
So, like, have most of your illustration work been like D&D, or like tabletop game focused, or have you done like other stuff?
Yeah, I would say it's probably at this point, probably like 90% kind of tabletop focused. Maybe
Yeah.
some kind of book covers type stuff. There's a certain amount of overlap there, I would say. So kind of trying to push that direction as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some of it has just been kind of interior illustrations as well, and some of that would probably be more kind of historical fiction, and again, the kind of folk tales, fairy tales type stuff as well. But again, a lot of overlap with D&D and high fantasy.
For sure. You said you're working on your own thing too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's in the relatively early stages. It's been, kind of kicking around in various notebooks for probably 4 or 5 years now, doing a little piece at a time.
Sure.
But yeah, you guys, you know how that is.
Oh, all my notebooks are there, man. I've got.
Yeah,
You just open them
Are
up
you
and you're like, I'll do this story next.
are you
yeah.
are you taking your archaeology background at all to like inform that game, or
Um, I would say a little bit in the sense that some of that is based on kind of Celtic and Gallic and Gaelic folklore. So there's some of that in there. But I'm kind of trying to bring my own twist to that. I don't want to do just another kind of classic high fantasy. We've
Yeah.
seen that,
thing?
we love
Yeah.
it. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. So with this project, I'm trying to do a little bit of that, kind of with that history background, but also do it in kind of a new way. So it's like solar punk, right? So similar to steampunk, but instead of steam powered kind of 19th century stuff, it's kind of futuristic solar powered solar energy as
Yeah.
well.
Oh,
So
that's
kind of
cool.
a fun fusion. Yeah.
So it's like science fiction almost with
A
fantasy.
little bit. I mean, and this is possibly an unpopular opinion, but my feeling is that all good sci-fi and good fantasy has a little bit of crossover, right?
Totally.
So you end up with, some of that. And yeah, so I'd say this is a little bit crossover as well, but primarily kind of fantasy.
That's not a bad thing. I mean, I started leaning a little bit into the fantasy side when I took Scott's class, right? Because I was like, I'm not going to come into class and start drawing a bunch of sci-fi stuff. It's a D&D character design class. But but how do I
Yeah.
get away with that? Like, how do I make this? And I realized you could do it regardless now because of the way the class works. But at the time, I
Yeah.
was like, how do I make this work? So then I was like, fantasy. How do I work fantasy in this series? And it's actually not that hard to do if you just take the time to. I was gonna say is for your own thing, you should slowly start introducing some of that at shows. Like, it's a good. I'll put it this way: like, people, I used to do a lot of fan art, and it sold fine. But when I
Sure.
started
Always.
showing my own stuff, fan art's always gonna sell. Um, when I started doing my own stuff, I slowly introduced it, and that's when I found that more people got interested in wanting to learn, talk to me. I wouldn't say the sales were like skyrocketing right away, but it built a base, right? And people were interested. Like, everybody knows Spider-Man's story. Nobody wants to talk about Spider-Man if he's at your booth, or Batman, or
Sure.
whatever character. Like, I just like him. I'm gonna buy him. We're done. Conversation's over. But if you have a cool piece there that's from your own series, they wanna learn about it. So um, that's the way. Like, if you do Dragon Con or Gen Con and you show up with some originals, like, and I don't mean originals like traditionals. I mean originals like it's your story.
Yeah.
People want to hear that. Like, Brian's following with Vast Grim is every time I'm at a show with them, and the amount of people that show up there, they're crazy, but it's awesome at the same time, right? It's like and there are people like myself who grew up reading cyberpunk books. It's all built in like a cyberpunk world, right? And then my stuff attracts people who loved 80s synthwave, 80s cartoons. Like, the whole
Sure.
series is really inspired by 80s cartoons. It's every time someone says, "What cartoon can you compare it to?" I'm like, I don't know, Voltron. And it's really not based on Voltron, but there's elements of it there, right? There's paladins running around in there. There's main bad guy there's actually not the main bad guy. He's a sub boss to a big boss, if you think of it like a video game. It's built that way on purpose, though, right? Because in my head, I was like, I want to make a game out of this. I want to make, I don't know, a movie out of this someday, or a show out of this, right? It's inspiring to hear Scott talk about how he's been plugging series and cartoons and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we could talk about that, so we won't.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
But those kind of things, right? So, like, and my point is, I feel like it's the age of the IP for a lot of us. So if you've got an idea and you've got this cool archaeology background, so I'm sure you can, like. I have a question. You ever go on a dig and find something creepy, like the Ark of the Covenant?
Been on a dig, yes. Find something, yes. Was it creepy? Not really.
Was it cursed?
I hope not. If it was, maybe I don't know. But when I was right at the end of my undergrad, because I studied like classical history, so that's ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, that kind of stuff. And I was lucky enough to go on a dig in the city of Mycenae, and also the site called Nemea, which is besides Olympia, it was one of the original sites for the athletic games. So really cool. One of the things that we were actually excavating was it's called a Tholos tomb, but it's almost like a giant beehive from the inside. It's hollow. Really kind of amazing structure. And we were basically sorting through a lot of the soil that had been removed from this tomb. And we found it was like a sealing stone. So they would use wax and they would press either rings or these like hard kind of like gemstones with a carved pattern into that wax or clay. So it'd be like a tradesman's mark or an individual scribe or something like that. And we found one. It was made of solid carnelian. It was probably about an inch across, and it had a little like leaping deer or antelope on it. So very beautiful. Wow. Not super creepy, but maybe it was cursed. Cool. I just don't know. So every time I stub my toe now, I will think of that, Alan.
I was hoping you'd hold it up on your hand all of a sudden, and be like, "It's right here. I'm still
right
wearing
here." No, sadly, no. That went into a museum. Yeah, Indiana Jones is right. It belongs in a museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This belongs in a museum.
Did you focus on specific civilization at all during your study, or was it just like you said, like just a wide net of like classic civilizations? Here they are, or was there one specific that you focused on?
So it was kind of a wide net to start with, and then for me specifically, I focused a little bit more on the ancient Minoans. So that's a Bronze Age civilization out of Crete and some of the islands in the Mediterranean. So an ancient Greek civilization, but different than the Mycenaeans, who were a lot more warlike. The Minoans liked to make amazing pottery and really beautifully handcrafted gold ornaments and stuff like that. So yeah. But it's for me, I think I went into that thinking that I wanted to be an academic. I toyed with that idea, and then I realized that it was really the stories of all this stuff that I was really drawn to versus, doing
The actual
paperwork
thing.
or
Yeah.
fishing stuff out of the dirt. And that kind of made me pivot. So,
I think that was the same realization James Gurney had because he was
yeah,
archaeology first as well, and then he
yeah,
shifted to art afterwards.
he's my hero. I didn't
Yeah.
actually realize that parallel until because I grew up with Dinotopia. Those were like my
Heck
favorite
yeah.
books ever.
Yep.
And I went back a couple years ago, and when I started kind of taking the art more seriously, and I saw that parallel, and I was kind of blown away. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not the only weirdo who like kind of came to this in
Yeah.
a roundabout way.
Well, people come in our industry. People come from. I've met people who are like, I was a scientist and now I'm an artist,
Yeah,
or
the
you're just
STEM
like,
artist
why don't you
to the
stay with
STEM.
science? You make a lot of money doing that.
There's
We
that.
met. Did you meet Gurney that year, Andrew? I think the year I met you at Spectrum he was there too,
Yeah,
right?
that was the
Yeah,
same year I met him. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
That's the only
cool.
time I've ever met him. He just happened to be there, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to go shake this man's hand.
The
Like
man, the myth, the
No,
legend.
he was great. His wife is great. She's awesome to talk to.
I didn't meet his
Very friendly.
wife. I met Gurney, and I remember the same year I met Brahm. I
Oh,
gifted him one of
wow.
my pieces, like a dope. I was just like, I
If
just want to let you have this. You really inspire me.
no,
Oh,
if I remember right, both James and his wife Jeanette were worried about Ian McCaig that year because I think he had just had a heart attack
Yeah, he had
or
like a heart
stroke or
attack or something.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I was talking to her about that, and she was like really concerned because it was like they were like, yeah, we were hoping we'd meet up with him this year, but he had
Mhm.
this thing happen. It's like, oh yeah, like I hope he's okay.
yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, James Gurney is fucking awesome.
I had another
Absolutely
thought, but I lost it.
beast.
Also, he makes amazing maquettes. He was definitely one of the ones that inspired me to start
Yeah.
making my own models.
Yeah,
Also,
you had
Eric,
some cool
big shout out
models
to
in
Eric.
class. Who was that
Yeah,
now?
yeah. I'm sorry.
Who was the second guy you named?
Oh, my mentor, Eric Wilkerson. Shout out to Eric.
Eric.
He's
Oh
an amazing artist and does really cool models.
I
He
used to
demos
do
a lot of them.
San Diego Comic Con with Eric all the time. He's
Oh,
probably
nice.
one of the I won't say too many of the stories because we used to get in trouble over stuff, but he was probably one of the funnest people to hang out with at those shows.
I
For
can see
starters, he
that.
was also a person of color, right? And it's nice to have another person of color hanging out with, just someone who could relate to some of the BS that would be happening in San Diego. Um, but I will call him out on his ability to take off his shoes before he hits his couch. Every time we would go drinking somewhere, Eric did this move where he just walked towards the couch and he would like jump towards it and his shoes popped off. And then he laid down. And I was just like,
How?
what?
That's
Yeah.
skill.
It's a learned trait for sure. But I loved every minute of it. I was just like, this is hilarious. And to the point where I would yell at him if we were at a bar and we went to a really fancy bar one night and he just doesn't like wearing his shoes apparently. So he took his shoes off. And I remember I was talking to Cynthia Shepherd and I was just like, put your shoes back on, man. Like this ain't your house, sir. But he was like always he's so like easygoing. One of my favorite Eric stories actually, because if I'm gonna embarrass this man, this is a good story. He was at his booth.
Sorry.
No, Eric and I are really good friends. Don't worry about it. We were at the booth. This is before I had my own booth there, so I was just hanging around his booth there. And this guy came by and said the same thing most people always say: I can't even draw a stick figure, right? And you're just like, oh, here we go. Eric was like, hold on a second, and he hands the guy a notebook and a pen. And then I forgot what his name was. Like, let's just say his name was John. It's like, go on, John. Start drawing a line. And he's like, now give it a circle. And he walks him through drawing a stick figure. So when the guy was done drawing it, Eric goes, now sign it. And he goes, now I've got an original John stick figure. And I just stood there the whole time. This guy drew it. This guy didn't, what are you going to do, right? This artist is telling you to draw it. And then he goes, there, so you can draw a stick figure, And I was just like, that was actually kind of brilliant, right? Because that guy probably walked away thinking, yeah, maybe I can draw more than that,
Love.
Um,
Oh, that's great.
yeah, and Eric's given me a lot of pointers over the years. I had to do a cover for Renegade Games. I did the cover for Time Chase, and it was at the
Ooh.
time my daughter was just born, my first daughter, and so I was under pressure to get this thing done. So I quickly sketched up stuff, and I didn't know who else. I reached out to anyone who was available, and Eric and I happened to be talking. And I said, "Hey, can you look over this cover? Can you give me some advice? Like, I need to turn this in." Gave me some good advice. So I can say
I
whatever I
believe.
want about Eric. I've known him really well. So
Oh no, that's great. That all sounds very Eric. He's a super super nice human and a really excellent teacher. So.
yeah, we've been trying to get him on the. I was trying to get him on the show before, but he had that book come out
Mhm.
with Kaepernick, and his agent was like, "You might want to wait. Just don't do anything else." And then so now I think I can get him on, but at that time he was in a holding pattern for where he was allowed to go. Not this. We're not gonna make this about Eric.
Did Eric turn you on to maquette building then, along with like looking at James Gurney and how he builds up references and stuff?
Exactly, yeah. So I grew up kind of again with Dinotopia, and I think he did what was it called? Gurney did another amazing book. I believe it's called How to Paint What Doesn't Exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
sounds right.
I think it was that one where he goes into his process of maquette making, and that really inspired me. I grew up making my own board games. I was that kid, and I have like 25 of them in my basement now. My
Like
parents were
actual
probably
board
like, "All
games.
right, yeah, like actual board games,
Why
like
aren't you
the
making
whole."
board games?
Well, that's the goal, Alan. We'll get there. But that's a
Okay,
secret.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
remember that now.
Please do. Please do. You can be my accountability buddy.
Oh,
Anyway, so
you
yeah, I
don't know
think
what you
that
just volunteered for.
Oh, I'm here for it. But yeah, so that book kind of jump started that, and I started sculpting a lot again when I was like probably 6 or 7 years old. Started doing
Mhm.
that, and yeah, I put it down for a long time, and then I took Eric's class over at CG Spectrum, and
Mhm.
in one of his modules, he went into detail about his maquette process, and he showed a really amazing. I think it was a extraterrestrial. I don't know what the current term, but a really cool piece that he had sculpted for. I think it was a book cover or maybe just a
Yeah,
painting.
I know
And he
what you're
went through
talking
that
about.
process. Yeah, and that kind of reignited my excitement to get back to the Super Sculpey and do some of that. So yeah, I've done I think 5 different models in the last year for different paintings. I did a couple of dragons, a griffin,
Yeah, the
a
stuff you
weird
showed in Scott's class
bird that I
was
invented.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think again, I'm trying to learn. I want to learn Blender and really kind of supplement those skills because there's some
Yeah,
stuff you really just kind of can't do with clay.
Or
But yeah, I
is
love
it
it. I think it's a lot of
a
fun.
big hassle or too much space takes up kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. Tell that to my basement. There's a whole bunch of models and stuff I kind of don't know what to do with now. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Like I used
your basement
to.
is turning into like Stan Winston Studios is what it's gonna be.
Yeah, it's like
That's a
full of
good
models
problem
and
though.
Yeah,
props and costumes and all of my lighting set up and all that because you got to get those reference photos.
I mean, some people
I
don't have the luxury of that. That's why, like, when I ask Andrew to help me with the 3D models, is because I just need the base idea of what it looks like. Because my style is not so refined that I can't just work off of that. But you were in class when Scott's like, sketch that over again, sketch it over again, sketch it over again. I'm like, bro, I'm gonna blow my brains out if you tell me to sketch this one more time. But
Yeah,
I understood what he was trying to get me to do from that.
What we gotta
definitely.
do, like we just gotta, we're gonna eventually get Alan where he can make the piece like 90% of the way there in
Yeah.
Blender, and then just put the AllenPanakal like sheen on it in Photoshop and make it his own.
It's just a
There
magic
you
button, guys. I just say make art.
No,
And it
it's not
comes
a magic button.
You wave your
Not
magic
like
wand
that.
and
Several
it's
sacrifices.
here.
That's what everybody thinks it is, though, Andrew. Everybody doesn't care to
It's
hear
true.
about my process. People at shows are like lasso tool. I'm like, it's a lot of lasso tool. It's what I learned to draw in.
I
You know.
mean, we had a. I'll touch briefly on work. We had some visitors come into the office. I want to say it was like right before I left for vacation and stuff, but they're touring the facility, and then they stopped by one of my coworkers' desks, and she does a lot of analog work.
Hmm.
Just because like she does a lot of like pen and ink stuff and all that kind of thing, and then she'll scan it in and then collage it in the computer and then supplement it with like Photoshop work on top of it and
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like she's really the only one that does that. Everyone else kind of like just sticks digitally for one reason or another. But yeah, the people's touring it though, they saw her thing and they're like, oh, like she actually does on paper. It's not a computer generated.
Yeah.
And another one of my coworkers heard that, and he was sour about it. He's like, it's all not computer generated. It's just that hers is just scanned in.
Right.
Right.
You
But
just
it's
didn't
like,
see
yeah,
the beginning of this. You saw the end of
it's
it.
yeah, it's that same thing. It's like they just think of it as a button. That's all.
I mean, the thing is, like, some people. So also, Ben called me out. Ben said, "Drawing is redrawing," which is a Scott thing. I have
True.
3 phrases on my wall in front of me. One is one my friends told me back in the day, which is "flow, don't push," which I say all the time to you guys
That's a good
because
one. That's a
because
good
if
one.
you push, you're gonna get stressed, and then you're not gonna get shit done. Take your time. And the other one is "drawing is redrawing." And after Scott's last class, I put up "don't fuck it up." You know.
I love it. Yeah,
That's just a
his
goofy
great
one.
parting advice: don't fuck it up and don't be an asshole. It's like,
Yeah, don't fuck
okay.
it up and don't be an asshole. Yeah. But yeah, like, people don't, like, it's like the shows. I feel like some people care to hear about your process and they're very interested in it because they might be artists themselves, right? Like, I've talked to people where they're like, what do you make this in? And I'm like, it's a lot of Procreate when I'm traveling, and a little bit of Alchemy, which is now Webchemy, I think, for my shape languages when I start. And
They
then
changed
a
the
lot.
name of that.
It's
Sorry,
called
that
Webchemy now. Yeah, it got bought out.
really.
And then,
Who bought that?
Photoshop, right? And Webchemy apparently bought it. So, but I'm trying to learn, I try to learn, like, I bought Affinity because I want to learn that so I can get rid of Photoshop. But Photoshop just does what I need it to do. So it's kind of hard to shift. But I tell this to people at shows and they're like, oh, I can
And
do
you
this
got
in Procreate.
loads of muscle memory in it.
Exactly,
That too.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like hard to like move away
really
from
hard
that.
to break that. Yeah.
And I know I
Yeah.
can do what I do in Affinity. It's just I don't have the time to retrain my brain in that program right now. So that's how Adobe's the pusher.
I always
Photoshop
describe
is
it
the
as,
drug.
yeah. I always describe it as like it's like trying to learn how to draw with your non-dominant hand again.
Ooh,
Like
okay.
you could do it. You really could do it if you really need to, but
Mhm.
it's
I mean,
such a
yeah,
huge hill compared to like what you already know, what you already have muscle memory for with your other
right.
hand.
You're just like so used to it, So it's like even when I use Procreate
Yeah.
when I'm on the traveling somewhere, I try to stick just to the base shapes. Like, what's the idea? What I want to draw, right? And I try to like because my goal is like at the end of the day, I used to always be like, don't reference so much, don't photo bash so much. But then after taking Scott's class and talking to other artists and other art directors who are like, photo bash as much as you need. Work on the art however you need to work on the art to get it done. It
Yeah.
just shouldn't
Yeah.
look like what you started with. It should be your own at the end of the day. Like Scott has this phrase that says "jack it up," and that's jack it up, man. Because I used to photo bash, and he'd be like, "This still looks, it looks a little bit like the reference I used." He'd be like, "Jack it up so it doesn't look like the reference." And like, it's the same thing he was doing with the, how he does the covers for the comics, and you saw him like literally slap a face down and trace over it, but then he goes in there and gives it this special Scott flair, and you're just like, it looks nothing like what he started with, and that's one of those things I had to learn. And I think a lot of people need to learn that because you get in your own head when you're like, I shouldn't use a photograph for this. Why not? I shouldn't use 3D for this. Why not?
Yeah.
I think,
You'll have a lot of fun with Blender.
Yeah.
I hope so.
There's so many resources out there to
Get
learn.
Daz. I think Daz is good for base figure
Yeah,
setups.
I was gonna say that's free. There's no reason
free.
not to have it.
I was using Daz, and now this is getting to be kind of old news, but I have a Mac that I use for my work, and it was like not supported, or like the asset manager wasn't working.
Oh,
They may have fixed that now, but I've tried it a few
I
times.
hate
and
Apple tech, man.
It really does not work. So yeah, we'll see. I would like to get back to that because, as you say, it's a really good kind of set asset just for like posing multiple figures, things like that.
I mean, the figures I've done in Scott's class, I've posed in Daz, bought them into Blender, rigged them with. Andrew's helped me with all this, so he I guess deserves some of the credit there.
there's a yeah, you can get like a. There's the official bridge for Daz and Blender. Then there's also like I think 1 or 2 third-party ones as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a 3D software on the
all
iPad
depending on,
too.
Is there? Oh,
yeah.
have you seen that?
So actually,
So I only use the iPad for drawing when I'm traveling and reading my comic books. But there is a 3D in there that you can build characters with. I heard.
yeah. 1 second, I'll tell you. It's
Yeah, 'cause I love my iPad. I got it like last September, literally
It's the
just to do
only.
characters, and now I cannot get off of it.
It's the only
So-
Apple product I will use. I hate the problem with their I wanted to get a MacBook for travel and stuff, but the problem is like some programs are just clunky on there. They don't work, and I'm just like, I ain't got time for that. I
Fair.
need to work.
So the program I use on iPad is called a Posit.
That's it.
Okay.
Basically, it's like it's one word, even though it's like two words, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, it basically looks like this.
Oh,
What you
okay.
can do with this is you can actually export this out as a, if I remember right, you can export it out as a 3D file. I forget the format. I think it might be OBJ or it might be
You bring that
another.
right into Blender.
Yeah, just import it directly into Blender. Blender will support it.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'll use this if I'm like lazy and I'm like I don't feel like touching DAS or whatever
Mhm.
right
Yeah.
now, or even if I'm just like I don't feel like sitting at the computer at the moment. I kind of want to like sit on the couch with
Yeah,
my
That's
wife
one of
that's
the
and
really
reasons
just
I'm
great.
trying to learn
mess around
Procreate. So I
with
can
it.
just sit on the couch
Yes,
and draw.
do it, Alan. I mean, they
Yeah,
draw super slow, but do it.
yeah.
I mean, it's just I
The
want to
only
be able to like sit somewhere other than here. You know.
Yeah.
so it has the same. I'll say this: it's like it has the same issue that I have with like DAS, where when you're posing with it, you know, you're ending up posing in a vacuum. So there's a lot of like
Mhm.
back and forth between it and Blender, at least for me, where
Sure.
I'll take it, I'll be like, this looks like it should be right, and then I import it into Blender, and then I'm like, well, no, really, it needs to be more like this, it needs to be more like this, or whatever. I need to modify a little bit more like that, and then I'll go back and tweak it a bit, then import it again, compare notes or whatever, keep doing that until I kind of like it. Um, you could do multiple figures in that program, at least, which I know is
Okay.
like nice. So,
That's
you know,
cool.
if you have like a multiple figure thing or whatever, you can stage that without any issue. And
That
it
is nice.
comes yeah, and it comes with like this was an example. I did like a little test of the thing.
Oh, cool. Yeah, you can have
Whatever.
them kind of interact to a
Yeah,
certain.
yeah.
That's
It does
cool.
come with like some primitives and then like some props as well that you can attach to figures or whatever, like having the scene. I haven't messed with that a whole lot, but I know they have it. It also has a horse in there. Haven't messed with that horse. I think that horse is a little weird
I ain't touching. I
when
ain't
I
touching
open
that
it
horse,
up.
man.
But
Oh.
no, it's a good iPad program.
Is it
Highly
just
recommend.
figures? Is there any environment, or is it just strictly figures for that one? Propose it.
Strictly figures. You can import some things, like you can import like a sphere or a cube, and you can be like mentally you can go that is the table or that is a chair or whatever, but
Right.
it doesn't set up like an environment the
It's
way you
better just
would
to
in
import it out of there
Blender.
and bring it into Blender, and then
That
Bring
makes
it
like
sense. Okay.
into Blender because Blender has the physically based rendering, so it can give you like accurate bounce and
Yeah.
global illumination and everything, like all the fancy stuff that you would expect.
Yeah, that's
Um,
really why I want to learn Blender is almost entirely for environments and all of that kind of lighting, ambient lighting and all that stuff.
I mean,
yeah,
that's my goal
definitely.
eventually with Andrew is to learn environments because then I can. The idea was always build the environment and then shoot camera angles from different spots to build landscapes, right?
No
The
kidding.
good
Yeah.
thing there is so all right, this will be like a Blender podcast for a moment.
Yeah.
So like if you want to do like environments, the two bits of advice I can give is like there are so many add-ons out there that will aid in that kind of thing. Like
Okay.
there's a camera add-on called Photographer. That's great because it it's not like it gives new features or anything. It just it collates all the features into an easy panel where you're like, cool, this is where
Okay.
it all is, instead of me hunting around and into like the muckety muck and trying to figure out how to make this thing work. Instead, it's
Yeah.
like all there, and like that's great. But then there's other like add-ons and stuff you can get, like assets you can get, like clouds, whatever, like things like that, vegetation, whatever. Um, a lot of it pays just to pay for it instead of like trying to look for a free version, because the free versions tend to be a little too jank, at least for
Yeah.
my purposes.
There's
But
always
there's a
something
lot of like
broken.
something always broken. And at least like all the paid versions, there's decent low cost options, or at least like decent like this is good bang for your buck kind of money. But
Okay.
then the other thing I would say is like with environment stuff is this is a relatively, I want to say within like the past year and a half feature. Blender now has what's called a asset browser, asset library.
Hmm.
So what you can do is you can make individual things and mark them as an asset that can be read by the asset browser. So then what you can do is later on when you're in another file, you can pull up your asset library and just be like, I'm going to just drag and drop this thing I made elsewhere and put it into this. So you could do like a giant kit bash thing where you have like a set of like doors that you make or whatever, or like a set of like archways. So you have like, your 5 different archways that you've made that are like your steeple, your curved, maybe like a square off one, whatever. Like you could basically make like a bunch of those, mark them all as assets, and now you have them as like drag and drop things to bring into a new file, so you don't have to recreate it from scratch every time, and you just
That's
have it.
really cool.
Yeah, yeah, and that I've been trying to make myself be better about using that. Because I tend just to forget that it's a thing. But yeah, it's I have it for like a bunch of vegetation, rocks, and stuff that I use like frequently because I know like I'm gonna use these all the time. Just
Oh
gonna
yeah.
mark them, and then that way I can just yank them, pull them
It
off.
sounds like a big time saver again because there's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff that's just kind of really standard in any genre. So
yeah,
no,
exactly.
that's good. Those are
Yeah,
good tips. Thank you.
and you could do that with like your buildings. If you think about like your buildings instead of like a whole thing, if you start thinking about it as like a model kit, then you
Yeah.
can be like, yeah, I'm gonna save this bit, save this bit, save this bit as all separate
Yeah,
things,
take
and
it
then later
apart.
on,
Almost like a stage set, right? Where it's like one like L
exactly,
shape or like a facade of a building or yeah, that makes sense too.
yeah.
Nice.
All right, man, we're a little over time.
All right, well,
So
yeah,
we're gonna have to
there's the
wrap
end
it
of my
up.
Blender talk.
Is there anything else you want to talk about, Lindley, that we didn't touch base on?
Hmm.
Like,
I don't think so. Oh, what actually, yeah, really quick, plug something else a little bit fun. So I recently got onto this new startup and it's kind of a artist and writers kind of almost like social media but for like books and like sharing what people are reading and also kind of having indie writers and artists kind of participate and put their stuff up there and just kind of a social media but for like storytelling and yeah, I think I might end up doing some art as kind of a side gig, like fan art almost, for these stories for this platform.
that's
And
cool.
the platform is called Story Lace, lace as in like you lace your shoes up. And yeah, the guy who started it, I think used to work at Google and all this stuff, and it's kind of his passion project. He and his wife. But it seems like a really cool thing, and they seem very big on making sure that smaller artists and writers are getting paid, and kind of not just jumping in with both feet with the whole AI thing. So yeah, I just really liked
Yeah,
that platform. So I can't speak. I've really just kind of started this, but
Sure,
it
no
seems
worries.
more like that. So yeah, Story Lace.
Story Lace, we'll look that up later.
yeah.
Well, thanks for being on. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks so much for
Um,
having me. It was really fun.
we'll definitely have you back on when you have more of your IP
There you
and
go.
maybe one of those board games out of the 20 that you got sitting in your basement. Um,
Yeah, I never know with that. Like, is it fun? Is it fun to see something that a
you gotta play
10-year-old
test
made?
it. So if you ever come to like Origins, for example, Gen Con does this too. They have like an unpub room, basically
Oh,
unpublished,
cool.
and that's a room designed for people to test their game ideas. And apparently, there's like some nobody in the gaming industry apparently signs like a NDA or anything. There's just a rule that you don't steal other people's ideas if they're showing them off in that room. Because most games, there's an element of something that's already existing out there that's similar.
No, but
It's what
it's a
makes
new idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
what makes yours like unique is the key. But yeah, I remember that room is where people would test out when you're ready for that kind of thing. So, all
Cool.
right.
No, that's great.
Um,
Well,
otherwise,
Lemley, where can we find you online?
You can find me. My website is my full name, so it's Linley, Linley, Barba, Barba.com. Or my other kind of mains would be my Instagram, which is PNW, as in Pacific Northwest, and then underscore Linley, and then underscore art. And that's me as well.
Awesome. Alan, where can we find you except TikTok?
Yeah, AllenPanakal art. AncientOnes.net is the main IP. AllenPanakal art on all socials, including now Reds and what was the other one I signed up for? Blue Sky. But not on TikTok still. I'm still working on that. Because someone's fucking squatting on me.
Slowly there. Almost.
There you go.
Oh, Ben said, on a quick note, Ben said you should bring your game to IX. We can play it there.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, okay. Well, I don't know if it's even really, it's mostly just art at this point, Ben, and like notes. I don't know if it'll be playable, but I will do my best. So I appreciate it.
Spinning a tall tale for us, Ben. Go ahead, Andrew. Where do we find you?
I can be found at asidesart.com. Sign up for the newsletter or the Patreon if you're interested.
Solid. Oh, you should sign up for Andrew's Patreon. He does a better job of it than I do. Okay, well, our guest next week is Christina Binden, I think is how you say her last name. She was, I think, in Cynthia Shepard's class with Ben, actually. So that's how I first got wind of her art style. So next week, 7 p.m. Central. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Alan,
yeah.
Do we have anybody on the 10th?
So the goal on the 10th was to get on Tawny Fritz. She has a Kickstarter. It's going to be ending a couple days after that. Is that right? Is that the order I had him in? Hold on.
Yeah, because Tawny has one. Her Kickstarter ends on the 20th.
So it's going to be one or the other. Either Melissa Sue Stanley is going to be on the 10th or Tawny, and then on the 17th it's going to be whoever doesn't come on the 10th. These ladies got to talk to me and get on the same page. Which one's got a Kickstarter that's ending, and Melissa's got a gallery that's here in Chicago. I went to it last Saturday. It's pretty cool. She has a bunch of like sculpts, and she sold a bunch. I think she sold like 3 of them while I was there.
Oh, really? The Wolbies?
Nice.
Yeah, the Wolbies. Yeah,
Nice.
I saw them like putting down sold stickers while I was just waiting to go get dinner, starving. Like, I definitely couldn't buy one as much as I wanted to because my budget's not ready for originals yet. It won't be ready till October-ish. And, I was like,
I hear you.
These are gonna be gone. So I was a little sad because she had this cute one with like a scarf. He had a backpack, and it was like a actual like felt like backpack. And he had like this actual scarf that looked like she like crocheted it. Is that the right word?
Yeah, I
And
remember her showing previews of that.
Dude, I was like, I want this guy right here, but I was just like, can't explain that to my wife. It was almost as tall as this bottle. It was a pretty big statue. So either way, thanks everyone who was watching. Thanks, Ben and Jason and all of them were chiming in here. Linley, thanks again for being on. I don't know what time it is, but it's like 5 o'clock by you, right?
Yeah, it's 6:30 now, but yeah, it's still bright out.
I gotta go get my kid. I see one kid in bed. I don't know where the other kid is, so that's worrisome. Like, she's walking around the house somewhere. So, all right, guys. Till next week. Linley, this will go live in about a couple minutes here, and then all your information will be there. So, if there's anything else you want to add, just let me know. Hang on.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.